Every time.
Let's go over at this stop 2. Let's look at the next diagram there.
Stop 2.
And what we're going to see here, use way too much time here. This is the outcrop that you're looking at here. And we're at stop 2, the edge of the geologic map. There's a reconstruction of the landscape at 68 million. Some sandstone bars with dinosaurs getting a drink of water. And I particularly want you to be sure and see those palm fronds. These are some of the dinosaurs, the duck-billed, the triceratops, and so on. And this is one that we'll look at in particular, and you have that diagram on your handout on 2, and we'll talk about the trails along this sandstone face. We've got about 3 places we're going to stop here, so watch where I stop. There's a lot to look at along here, but we'll look at the major parts of it. We have gone to a 3rd iteration of this geology, and these diagrams are in, I don't have my book with me. We have a new guide down available at the museum, and these are all diagrams from that new guide. And let me point out to you that if you look up along that last blue sign, you'll see a big log. It's about 24 feet long. It's kind of a reference. So if you look at stop 2, you'll see a picture of that log, and it's shown here. And I think you have that picture on your handout materials. Now, the last place that you see a blue sign up there is a hadrosaur track. It's a 3-toed track. And if you can't quite see it, those of you that are farther back can look up and see those 3 toes. The most abundant dinosaurs here were what's called a bulge. That's a triceratops track. And what you see here, it's like an elephant track. There was a clay layer present here which they've mined out. And when that clay layer and sand was deposited, it was horizontal. It's one of the principles of sedimentary geology. It says sedimentary rocks are originally deposited horizontally. And that clay layer, the dinosaurs were walking around in it, forming a mold, and the next layer that was deposited over the top of that horizontal layer was a sandstone. So if there was a depression or a track there, it filled in. And then as it got buried, it was lithified, that is, made as a hard sandstone, and then with the uplift of the range, you see the sandstone layer now vertical. This is the base of the sandstone layer, and you see some of the toes of the triceratops. And if you study these tracks and these bulges, you see a lot of them will tend to line up. And we've put little blue markers on a lot of those triceratops trails so that you can make out what the trends was. The trails, of course, now are vertical, but if you take it out and then look at the directions, they were going in that direction. The other thing you see here is that when the sandstones were deposited, a lot of the sand deposited on the shale, the dinosaurs were still walking around on that sand, and the effect was have what's called trampled ground. So you see all this uneven ground, and most of what I'm telling you comes from the work of Martin Lockley, who's one of the track experts at the University of Denver, CU at Denver. So this is a diagram of the face itself. You need a little more juice. And what you see are these bulges on the base of the sandstone, and those bulges are the tracks that were filled by sandstone and in that mold is a cast. I frequently ask the K-12 students, if you look at these dinosaur tracks here, could the dinosaur have walked up that slope? And you know, they all got the answer right. No, it couldn't have. Okay, so if the dinosaur is walking around with when the sediment layers are horizontal and formed, and then they're tilted like this at the edge of the mountain, now you're seeing the evidence for the mountains being a mountain of uplift. And that's what they are. That's the uplift was more than just a crustal block that went up. It also formed an anticlinal structure. You notice here how there are remnants along the front of the mountains where you see these sedimentary layers can be projected over the top. And so if you look, this is like the limb of a big anticline and faulted by the Golden Fault. And so you see as we walk around the remnants of that plank of the structure. And that's what we're looking at here. How about these different type of plants? Well, one of the significant types, let's look at stop 2. One of the significant type plants is a palm tree. And the leaf structure of the palm tree is called a palm frond, F-R-O-N-D. So I want to show you a palm frond here and show you the attachment structure where it attaches onto that stalk. And it's a short distance over here. Everybody see that detachment structure and the leaf itself? Now as you walk through this area, you find a lot of fragments of these palm fronds. None that are quite so well preserved as that one. And it's worth looking at this, because from the plants here you reconstruct a rainforest as shown there, and that gives you a climate that's something like Florida or parts of Louisiana or the Gulf Coast. Humid to semi-humid climate. And that's also where plants accumulate to form coal, which we'll talk about at stop 3. Can you still hear me all right? Okay. Okay, here's the summary. This is the base of a sandstone that's vertical, slightly overturned. When it was deposited, it was down like that. When you uplifted the range and this big fold formed, these beds were rotated to their present position and then eroded down. Then the clay miner comes along and he mines out this clay, which was valuable. So you don't see the contact here between the clay and the overlying sandstone. And that bunch of little dinosaurs there, they're supposed to represent the number of tracks identified to try to find out how many dinosaurs were traipsing around here. And that's from Martin Lockley's work. Okay?
So the clay is gone. The clay is gone.
If you walk past that tree, you'll find where the clay is still present. So if you're a doubter, walk with me down there. I'll show it to you, and we'll go to stop 3. There you see the base of the sandstone. You can trace it along with Triceratops tracks. And you come here, you see a gray shale up there in contact with the sandstone. And above that gray shale, a couple feet thick, you see a dark gray organic rich shale, and then some more sandstones that come in. So that's the clay that was mined away. There's something else you observe here, and that's some very small faults. Now, a fault is a break in the rock along which movement has occurred, usually planar structures. And there you see a blue sign that says fault surface. And if you look, you see the top of the shale, the palm fronds and stuff here on the sand, and then there's an offset of 3 or 4 feet, and there's the top, the base of the sandstone up there. And so if you look carefully at that surface, that's marked fault surface, you'll see some striations on it, and it indicates the direction of movement. They're called, especially over in that area there. That fault surface is about 60 degrees relative to the bedding planes, the contacts of the formations. Yeah.
It's just like this.
Yeah. It's the way it went. So this was the clay that was mined out all along this face. And that's the clay that was flat-lying. And the dinosaurs made tracks, left those tracks, and then along comes a sandstone layer that fills in the tracks, that continues to get buried and lithified. Now it's uplifted and it's hard enough that it hasn't eroded away. Hey, Steve, let's go to stop 3.